complaining about that?
The Bronx in the late 1980s didn't create legends. It tested them, broke most of them, and only a few rose high enough to be remembered. And among the names that echoed through stairwells, street corners, and late-night conversations, one stood out not because he was the oldest or the most connected, but because he moved faster than anyone expected. A young man who turned instinct into empire. George Rivera, known simply as Boy George, wasn't supposed to become what he became, and that's what makes his story heavier. He didn't inherit power, didn't come from a long line of organized crime figures, didn't have mentors guiding him through the underworld. What he had was something rarer, an ability to see patterns where others saw chaos, to recognize opportunity where others saw survival, and to move on it without hesitation. Before the money, before the violence, before the reputation, there was just a kid in the South Bronx watching everything, absorbing everything, studying how heroin moved through the streets, how addicts chased it, how dealers controlled it, how entire neighborhoods revolved around something as small as a glassine envelope. While most were reacting to the environment, George was analyzing it, breaking it down, understanding that the streets weren't just random. They were structured, predictable, and exploitable if you knew what to look for. Sometime around 1987, he made his move. And like all dangerous beginnings, it didn't look like much at first. Around 100 grams of heroin. That's all it took because it wasn't about the size. It was about the system he built around it. He didn't just sell product, he engineered a process. Cutting, packaging, distributing, organizing workers, assigning roles, creating consistency. And then he did something that separated him from almost everyone else in the game at that time. He gave the product a name. It sounds simple, almost insignificant, but that decision changed everything. Because now customers weren't just buying heroin, they were asking for something specific. That created identity. It created loyalty. It turned a street product into something closer to a brand. And just like that, George Rivera wasn't just another dealer moving weight. He was building something that resembled a corporation operating inside chaos. Within months, the system expanded. Apartments turned into packaging hubs. Workers moved like employees. Glassine envelopes stamped with a name started circulating across the Bronx, each one reinforcing the presence of something bigger than a single dealer. By the summer of 1987, the numbers were already escalating to dangerous levels. Tens of thousands turning into hundreds of thousands, with estimates placing around $100,000 worth of heroin moving weekly through his operation. And George was still barely stepping into adulthood. Money at that speed changes everything. It changes how you move, how you think, how you see yourself. The clothes changed first, designer labels replacing anything ordinary. Then the cars, customized, flashy, loud enough to announce presence before he even stepped out. Then the lifestyle, luxury not as a reward, but as a statement. He wasn't just making money. He was showing it, displaying it, turning it into a visual language that said he had arrived. He even invested in property in Puerto Rico, paying cash, remodeling it, marking it as his own, a move that showed he wasn't thinking short-term anymore. He was thinking legacy, even if he didn't fully understand what legacy meant in a world like that. But behind the image, behind the success, behind the rapid rise, there was another layer, the one that always exists in the drug trade, whether people want to admit it or not. Control, fear, enforcement. Because systems like his don't survive on business alone. They survive on power, and power in that world is maintained through the constant threat of violence. Investigators would later link his organization to multiple killings, the kind that send messages without needing explanations, the kind that keep workers in line and rivals at a distance. George understood early that loyalty wasn't something you could expect. It was something you had to enforce, and enforcement came with consequences that were final, permanent, and designed to echo. At just 21 years old, he had built something most men spend decades chasing, a multi-million-dollar heroin enterprise with structure, branding, distribution, and influence. But the faster something rises in that world, the faster it becomes visible, and visibility is the beginning of pressure. Law enforcement doesn't ignore operations at that scale. They study them, they watch them, they wait. And while George continued expanding, continued moving product, continued living at a level most couldn't imagine, the system around him was slowly tightening. Undercover operations began forming. Informants started moving. Surveillance increased. And like many before him, he kept adapting, shifting locations, adjusting operations, maintaining momentum, believing that movement was protection. In August 1987, an undercover detective was introduced into his world. A controlled buy took place. High-purity heroin exchanged hands. And what seemed like just another transaction became something much bigger. It became evidence. The kind of evidence that builds cases, the kind that doesn't disappear, the kind that grows stronger over time. Even then, the operation didn't stop. It couldn't. That's the nature of it. When you're moving at that level, you don't slow down. You keep going, because stopping means losing everything you've built. More product moved, more money flowed, more risk accumulated. The system that made him powerful also made him traceable. Every worker, every location, every transaction became a thread that could be followed, and law enforcement followed all of them. By 1989, the investigation reached its peak. The structure had been mapped. The evidence had been gathered. The system was ready to close in. And just like that, George Rivera was arrested. No dramatic collapse, no warning signs flashing in advance. Just a moment where everything stopped, from the streets to the system in an instant. The empire didn't disappear overnight, but it was effectively over. The same organization that once generated power now generated testimony, records, proof. In 1990, he was indicted on multiple charges tied to large-scale narcotics trafficking, and during the trial, the full scope of his operation came into focus. Over 100 kilograms of heroin linked to the conspiracy. A scale that placed him among the most significant figures in the heroin trade at that time. And then came the sentence. Life imprisonment, no parole, a full stop. From a teenager building an empire to a man facing the rest of his life behind bars, all before reaching the age where most people are still figuring out who they want to be. That's the reality of the game. It accelerates everything. The rise is fast, the money is fast, the reputation is fast, and the fall is even faster. But what makes George Rivera's story stand out isn't just the rise or the fall, it's the speed of both. Most kingpins build slowly, layer by layer, year by year. He didn't. He moved with a level of velocity that didn't give him time to fully understand the weight of what he was creating. He was a prodigy in a world that rewards intelligence, but punishes it just as quickly when it becomes too visible. And that's the uncomfortable truth at the center of his story. Because if you strip away the illegality, the violence, the destruction, what remains is a mind that understood systems, branding, and scalability at an age where most people are still learning the basics. But in the streets, talent without boundaries becomes danger, and danger doesn't last forever. It burns bright, fast, and then it disappears. The legacy of George Rivera isn't just about drugs, money, or crime. It's about what happens when intelligence meets opportunity in an environment with no structure, no safeguards, and no second chances. He didn't just sell heroin, he transformed it into something recognizable, something repeatable, something that moved like a brand through the streets. He didn't just run a crew, he built an organization that functioned with roles, systems, and incentives. And he didn't just fall, he was absorbed into a system designed to erase people like him completely. But the streets don't erase that easily. They remember the speed, the scale, the image, the way it all unfolded so quickly it almost didn't seem real. They remember how a young man from the Bronx turned observation into power and power into an empire. And most of all, they remember how it ended. Not slowly, not gradually, but in the same sudden way it began. Because in the end, his story isn't just about success or failure. It's about velocity. How fast a mind can rise when it sees something others don't. and how quickly that same rise can collapse when the system closes in.